It's toward the very end. You got 4 Ghostbusters. They're out there. They're trying to catch ghosts, and they're facing off against this some kind of ancient creature on top of a tall building. And Dan Aykroyd's character comes forward, and he's called Ray in the movie. And so Ray comes up there and says something to the effect of, "By the authority of the city, county, and state of New York, I order you to cease and desist." And this creature, crackling with lightning, just looks at him and says, "Are you a god?" He looks back at his buddies, and they're like, I don't know what you need to say. And he turns around, and he says, "No." And the creature says, "Then die," and tries to knock him off the building with his electrical, and just nearly knocks him off the building. And so as they're about to climb back onto the building, still their uniforms smoking from this, one of the Ghostbusters says, to Dan Aykroyd's character, says, "Ray, when someone asks you if you are a god, you say yes. Don't do that. But here's the point. Here's where this came recently into my life and enriched my life. Kim and I were at Kohl's the other day. We're having to look for some more maternity-type stuff. And we were at Kohl's, and we were walking through, and there was a woman, a nicely dressed, sharply dressed woman, who, as we were passing her, said, "Excuse me, do you have a Kohl's credit card?" And, well, we don't, and we don't want one. And Kim, however, is in the crosshairs, and she says, "No." And so the woman is like, "Oh, well, let me tell you, you'll get this kind of an interest rate, and we got all these kind of special deals, and you'll save 10% today." And it took forever to shake this woman and to go on our way. I hope she's not in here today. It could be. We finally get away, and I looked at Kim, and I said, "Kim, when someone asks you if you have a Kohl's card, you say yes." I knew this life lesson because I learned it early, and let me tell you how I learned that earlier. When I was a kid, Ghostbusters came on the ABC Sunday night movie on TV, and we recorded it on the VCR minus the commercials. Kids, ask your parents what a VCR is. They will tell you. And I mean, I watched that movie every day. I had that puppy flat memorized. I could tell you every line of dialogue. I didn't even have to have it in. I could just rehearse the whole thing. Well, one day, I went over to one of my friend's house, and his parents had bought him for his birthday Ghostbusters on tape. And we were going to watch Ghostbusters, and like, this is my movie. So this was the real version, though. See, this was the not edited for content and to run in the allotted time. Remember that? How they would always put that at the beginning? Well, this is the real thing. So I'm watching this thing, and I'm knowing every bit of it. But then suddenly, I'm starting to hit scenes that I didn't remember. Some of the dialogue was subtly changed in provocative ways to my 9-year-old mind. And I thought I knew this movie back and forth because I had my version of it. But then when I saw the original version of it, I realized that what I thought was Ghostbusters was actually kind of a tweaked version, and I didn't have the original. I say this is all to relate back to the Lord's Prayer, what we're looking at here today, because what we get in Luke, and you probably noticed this as I was reading through it, is not exactly what we just said in the Lord's Prayer. It's phrased differently. Not only is it we use kind of the King Jamesy version for tradition's sake, but some of the words are actually different. And there's several of these differences, but the one I want to concentrate on right now is this. We say, "Lead us not into temptation." And if you notice me, I kind of stumbled on the word temptation when we were praying. It's because I wrote this sermon, and I got this in my head. Because Luke doesn't say temptation. When I think of temptation, I think of chocolate chip cookies. Listen, I come to Carlisle. I know what temptation is because I have come to a meet and greet. I went to a funeral yesterday where there were 3 different kinds of desserts, at least, and that may have just been what caught me. There may have been more past that, but there's a couple that I just caught my attention. I know what these kind of temptations are, and I usually think about them in terms of chocolate. And that may be because of too many Lents hard spent. I don't know. But what the New Revised Standard Version, which is the Bible I use, says is, "Lead us not into the time of trial," which is a different thing than temptation. We're used to our version from tradition, so when we see the Scripture version looking a little different than what we're used to, it can disorient us. Just like when I was a kid, the real Ghostbusters movie disoriented me and kind of took me out of my zone. Time of trial sheds new meaning on Jesus' words. It's not just about temptation. It's not just about sort of your inner feelings about one thing or another, or your inner inclinations. Time of trial is a real test in life. A test of your resolve, a test sometimes of our faith. It's when you come to the crossroads between doing the right thing, even when it's hard and involves personal sacrifice, instead of doing the wrong thing, even though it's easier and it's the road of least resistance. Everyone in life goes through these kinds of tests. We can't get away from it. It's part of our human condition. When Jesus said, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light," what he meant there was that it all boils down, instead of having a huge list of rules, it boils down to love God, love your neighbor. That's the core essence. That's why the yoke is easy and the burden is light. You can memorize it like that. But Jesus also said, "Take up your cross and follow me. And whoever will not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of the kingdom." So he's not talking about a cross necklace here. He's not talking about something that's 24 carats. He's talking about the real way of suffering. Because doing right in the world will always lead you into difficulties. Why? Evil that's in the world can tolerate other evil that's in the world. It can tolerate a hypocritical Christian. It can tolerate a church that does not live out its creed in the world. Because evil kind of gets evil. It understands it. It's on the same playing field. But evil cannot deal with what's really good. Because good, just by being good, shines the light on evil and exposes it to be evil. Evil doesn't look evil until there's something good next to it. Like it says in John 1:5, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it, but not for lack of trying." We say to God in our prayer, "Lead us not into temptation. Lead us not into the time of trial. Lead us not there." The time of trial will find us. We don't have to go out looking for it. The point of being a Christian is not to become so spiritually strong and resilient so that we can withstand whatever tests we can go out there into the world and confront. There's only one person who can stand up to every test, to every temptation, and that's Jesus Christ. And even Jesus, in the Garden of Gethsemane, not long before he was arrested and crucified, prayed to God, "Father, if it is possible to take this cup of suffering from me, then let's do that. If not, then let your will be done." Jesus did not go looking for tests. Jesus did not go hunting trouble. But it found him because Jesus bore witness to the light. And the darkness could not stand that. Specifically, it's the religious leadership of his time who were corrupt, who were all about the money, who were oppressing the poor. Well, Jesus comes along and doesn't do those things. Jesus comes along and shows the opposite example, and that threatens the evil. That's the same model, that's the same paradigm that works itself out over and over in the world. This is the reason the way of the cross is still here for us. The darkness cannot stand it, and the darkness in Jesus' case did its best to smother the light. Of course, Jesus' resurrection defeated the darkness forever. But some of that darkness yet remains in the world. Here's a way to think about it, and I think this is a very useful metaphor. World War II, D-Day. The troops land at Normandy. The Americans are coming to back up the Allies in Europe. And as soon as that happens, as soon as those troops come on board or come on shore, the Nazis no longer had a real chance to win. They did before, but at that moment, the outcome was all but secured. And yet, they kept fighting anyway. And that's why, in addition to D-Day, there's another day called VE Day, which, as you know, means victory in Europe. That's the day that the Nazis finally surrendered. Between D-Day, when defeat was assured, And VE Day, when defeat actually happened, there is still this period of intense fighting, a lot like a wounded animal that knows it's going to